72-year-old black woman in simple clothes facing two uniformed men blocking the courthouse entrance. Their badges gleam in the morning sun. Their smirks speak volumes. ID, the first officer demands, towering over her. She reaches slowly for her purse. Too slowly. Did you hear me, Grandma? Or are those ears as useless as those legs? Onlookers freeze. Phones appear. No one steps forward. Eleanor straightens her spine, dignity intact despite the pain shooting through her knee. Little do they know, they've just humiliated the wrong woman. Dr. Eleanor Robbins arrives at the courthouse 30 minutes before her swearing-in ceremony. After 50 years fighting for justice in courtrooms across America, today she joins the state Supreme Court. Her driver pulls to the curb. "Ma'am, this isn't the judge's entrance," he says, glancing at the public line forming. Perfect. Eleanor smiles. I want to see how regular citizens experience our courthouse. The driver helps her out, concern etching his features. Should I wait? No need. I'll be inside all day. Eleanor adjusts her simple cardigan, deliberately chosen over her usual tailored suits. Today, she's not arriving as Justice Robbins, but as any other citizen seeking justice. At the security checkpoint, Officers Thompson and Reeves notice her approach. Thompson nudges his partner. Great. Another confused senior who can't read signs. He rolls his eyes. Reeves snickers. Look at that getup. Probably thinks she's going to church. $10 says she asks for directions to social services, Thompson adds. Eleanor catches their exchange. Their dismissive glances aren't new to her. Throughout her career, she's been underestimated as a woman, as a black person, as someone who grew up in poverty. She's used these misjudgments as fuel. She approaches steadily, leaning slightly on her cane arthritis, a souvenir from decades of standing in courtrooms. Good morning, officers, she says. I have an appointment inside. Thompson's face hardens. Ma'am, this entrance is for people with official business only. I understand. I do have official ID, Thompson interrupts, palm outstretched. Eleanor reaches for her credentials, fingers moving deliberately against the morning stiffness in her joints. From her perspective, the officer's impatience radiates like heat. From Thompson's view, she's just another obstacle in an already long day. The credentials that would end this confrontation remain just beyond her grasp as Thompson's patience evaporates. Thompson steps forward, invading Eleanor's personal space. His shadow falls across her face as he towers over her 5'4" frame. Ma'am, this entrance is for people with actual business here. His words slice through the morning air. The senior center is 3 blocks down if you're lost. Eleanor doesn't flinch. I have an appointment inside the courthouse. Reeves laughs, exchanging glances with his partner. What kind of appointment? Jury duty was last week. I'm expected inside, Eleanor says, voice firm but quiet. Her fingers continue working the clasp on her purse. A small crowd forms behind her. The morning security line grows as Thompson plants himself directly in front of Eleanor. Not without proper ID and a valid reason, Thompson says. His hand hovers near his belt. Eleanor finally unclasps her purse. I'm trying to show you my... The wallet slips from her fingers, contents spilling across the polished floor. When she bends to retrieve them, pain shoots through her knee. She winces but doesn't cry out. A young law clerk steps forward from the line. Let me help you, ma'am. Step back, Thompson orders. We're handling this situation. The clerk freezes, uncertainty crossing his face. But she's clearly... Move along, Reeves cuts in. Unless you want trouble too. Eleanor catches the clerk's eye and subtly shakes her head. The young man retreats reluctantly. Eleanor kneels despite the pain, gathering her scattered cards. Thompson watches without offering help, interpreting her quiet dignity as stubbornness. This entrance is for court employees, lawyers, and official visitors, Thompson says. Not for people who don't belong here. From Eleanor's perspective, she catalogs each word, each microaggression. From Thompson's view, he sees only an obstinate old woman disrupting his routine. Eleanor's fingers finally close around her judicial ID card. She rises slowly, holding it toward Thompson. As her hand extends with the ID, Thompson's patience shatters completely. Thompson's hand strikes Eleanor's shoulder before she can present her ID. The force sends her off balance. Her cane clatters against the marble floor, the sound echoing through the entrance hall. "That's enough," Thompson snaps. "This is a secure government building, not a playground for confused seniors." Reeves kicks the cane, sending it skidding across the floor beyond Eleanor's reach. "Maybe next time you'll listen the first time." Eleanor clutches the security desk to stay upright. Her dignity remains intact despite the pain now radiating through her hip and knee. The gathered crowd's collective intake of breath sounds like a wave. A woman in a blue blazer steps forward. "Officers, this is completely—" "Ma'am, step back!" Reeves cuts her off. The woman's companion pulls her away, whispering something about not getting involved with police. Eleanor's scattered belongings remain on the floor, her wallet, reading glasses, a small notebook. Thompson makes a show of gathering them, shoving items carelessly into her bag. "I need my cane," Eleanor says, her voice steady despite the situation. Thompson ignores her request. "You need to leave immediately. This is your final warning before I arrest you for trespassing." "We can call someone to come get you," Reeves adds, his tone patronizing as though speaking to a child. "Is there a family member we should contact?" Eleanor stands as tall as her 5'4" frame allows. 50 years of courtroom battles have taught her when to fight and when to observe. Right now, she observes every word, every action catalogued in her precise legal mind. From Eleanor's perspective, this moment transcends personal humiliation. It represents exactly why she accepted her judicial appointment to address systemic injustice. From Thompson's view, he sees only an obstinate woman refusing to comply with his authority. A courthouse janitor pushing his cart stops abruptly, recognition flashing across his face. Eleanor catches his eye and gives an almost imperceptible headshake. The janitor hesitates, then slips away, pulling out his phone. "I will not leave," Eleanor says, each word measured and clear. "I have an appointment, and I have every right to be here." The crowd grows larger. Phones appear, recording the confrontation. Thompson's face darkens. His hand clamps around Eleanor's upper arm. "That's it. You're leaving now." His grip tightens as he begins forcing her toward the exit. Eleanor doesn't resist physically, she doesn't have to. Each step builds the case she will eventually bring before the police commission. "Remove your hand," she says quietly. "You have no right to touch me." "I have every right," Thompson retorts. "And if you don't start walking, you'll leave in handcuffs." As Thompson's grip bruises her arm, Eleanor's eyes flash with a determination that should warn him everything is about to change. Eleanor makes a silent vow not to reveal her identity. Not yet. What began as a simple observation has transformed into something far more significant. The treatment she's receiving isn't unique. It happens daily to citizens without her credentials and influence. As a newly appointed Supreme Court justice focused on accountability reform, she recognizes what most citizens never get, a chance to document systemic failure from within. Around the corner, out of sight, the janitor who recognized Eleanor speaks urgently into his phone. "This is Frank down at security." They're manhandling Justice Robbins at the public entrance, the new Supreme Court justice. They have no idea who she is. He listens for a moment. "Yes, sir." "Right now. It's bad." Thompson marches Eleanor toward the exit, her arms still locked in his grip. Her steps are uneven without her cane, each one sending pain through her knee. The crowd has doubled in size. At least 7 people hold phones up, recording. Reeves notices and steps toward them. "Put those phones away," he orders. No recording in a federal building. Eleanor speaks clearly, her voice carrying. The public has every right to record police actions in public spaces. The Supreme Court affirmed this in Glick versus Cunniff Thompson's Grip Titans. You're not a lawyer, Grandma. Stop making things worse for yourself. If only he knew. Eleanor thinks of her 50 years practicing law, her 8 arguments before the Supreme Court, her landmark cases establishing police accountability standards, including the very case she just cited. Inside the courthouse, Chief Justice Harrington slams down his phone. What do you mean they're manhandling Justice Robbins? His assistant pales. The janitor says security officers are physically removing her from the building. Get Security Chief Martinez, now. Harrington rises from his desk. And call down to alert them who she is. His assistant hesitates. Should I? The Chief Justice pauses, understanding dawning. Did she identify herself to the officers? Apparently not. Then neither will we yet. Get Martinez and meet me at the entrance. Eleanor remains outwardly calm despite Thompson's grip on her arm. Each second strengthens her resolve to use this experience to drive meaningful reform. This is no longer about her dignity. It's about every citizen who faces similar treatment without recourse. Thompson mistakes her quietness for defeat. Finally getting the message, huh? From Eleanor's perspective, she catalogs every violation: unnecessary force, failure to read Miranda rights, ignoring requests for medical accommodation. From Thompson's view, he sees only an obstinate woman finally submitting to authority. You know, he says, voice low, this all could have been avoided if you'd just followed instructions. Eleanor meets his gaze. Officer Thompson, I suggest you remember this moment clearly. You'll be revisiting it quite often in the near future. As the Chief Justice's team rushes toward the entrance, Thompson makes his final, career-ending mistake. That's it, Thompson declares, pulling handcuffs from his belt. You're being detained for obstruction and trespassing in a federal building. He forces Eleanor's arms behind her back. Pain shoots through her shoulder, a rotator cuff injury from years ago. She doesn't cry out, but her sharp intake of breath echoes in the sudden silence. You had your chance to leave nicely, Thompson says as the metal cuffs click open. A young woman with braided hair steps forward from the crowd. This is wrong! She's just an elderly woman asking for her cane. Reeves turns, hand moving to his taser. You want to be next? Step back, step. The crowd recoils but doesn't disperse. More phones rise, recording from various angles. Eleanor stands perfectly still as Thompson positions the handcuffs. Her voice, when it comes, carries the weight of 5 decades in courtrooms. Officer Thompson, badge number 4872, and Officer Reeves, badge number 5136, you are violating my civil rights under Code Section 42-1983. Thompson's hands freeze momentarily. Confusion crosses his face at her specific knowledge of laws and their badge numbers, which aren't clearly visible on their uniforms. Eleanor continues, her voice carrying to the crowd. Every citizen has the right to enter a public courthouse without harassment. Your actions constitute assault, battery, and civil rights violations. Thompson recovers quickly, snorting a laugh. Now you're a Supreme Court justice, huh? The irony of his statement hangs in the air. The crowd grows larger. Courthouse employees gather at the edges, whispering. A security camera above the door pivots toward the scene. Reeves shifts nervously, noticing the growing audience. Thompson, maybe we should call the sergeant. For what? Thompson doesn't look away from Eleanor. Because this trespasser suddenly knows some legal jargon? There's a lot of people watching, Reeves mutters. Maybe we should... Do your job, Thompson cuts him off, reaching again for the handcuffs. From Eleanor's perspective, each moment confirms the necessity of the reforms she plans to implement. From Thompson's view, the situation spirals beyond his control as onlookers multiply and his partner wavers. Just as Thompson reaches for his handcuffs, the courthouse doors burst open. The Chief Justice's assistant bursts through the doors, Security Chief Martinez right behind her. They stop abruptly, taking in the scene. Thompson with handcuffs out, Eleanor standing with forced dignity despite her painful stance. Thompson doesn't notice them, focused entirely on Eleanor. "You're under arrest for trespassing and resisting an officer." He begins reciting Miranda rights in a monotone. "You have the right to remain silent." Eleanor meets his gaze steadily. "Officer Thompson, I suggest you reconsider your actions very carefully." Her voice carries quiet authority that makes several bystanders look at her more closely, sensing something they missed before. Security Chief Martinez strides forward, face contorted with alarm. "Officer Thompson! Release her immediately!" Thompson continues securing the first cuff, ignoring the command. The metal bracelet closes around Eleanor's wrist with a decisive click. Reeves notices the courthouse officials and pales visibly. He taps Thompson's shoulder urgently. "Thompson! Thompson!" "Not now!" Thompson snaps, shrugging off his partner's hand. The courthouse doors open again. Chief Justice Harrington appears, his imposing 6'3" frame filling the doorway. His face is a mask of controlled fury as he surveys the scene. The crowd parts instinctively as he approaches. Eleanor catches his eye across the lobby. She gives a subtle headshake, an instruction clear to anyone who knows her. The Chief Justice hesitates, understanding dawning on his face. Thompson finally notices the commotion and turns, Eleanor's wrist still locked in the half-applied handcuffs. "Step back!" This woman is being detained for unauthorized access and disorderly conduct. Security Chief Martinez steps directly into Thompson's space. His voice drops to a dangerous whisper that nevertheless carries to the now silent crowd. "That woman is Justice Eleanor Robbins, newly appointed to the State Supreme Court." He enunciates each word with precise fury. "And you are manhandling her on the courthouse steps." Thompson's face goes blank with incomprehension, then shock as the words register. His eyes dart from Martinez to the Chief Justice, then finally truly seeing her for the first time to Eleanor. From Thompson's perspective, the world suddenly tilts sideways as reality realigns itself. From Eleanor's view, justice begins its slow, inevitable march. The blood drains from Thompson's face as the words sink in, but it's already too late to undo what he's done. That's impossible," Thompson stammers. His gaze shifts frantically between Eleanor and the Chief Justice. The handcuff key trembles in his fingers. Eleanor straightens her spine, her demeanor unchanged, but somehow more commanding. The transformation isn't in her, it's in how others now see her. "My cane, please," she says. Her voice remains exactly as calm and measured as before, but the authority it carries is suddenly unmistakable. Reeves scrambles across the marble floor, retrieving the cane from where it landed. He nearly trips in his haste, face flushed with mortification. The crowd watches in stunned silence, several people still recording. One woman whispers urgently into her phone, describing the scene to someone on the other end. The Chief Justice steps forward, his ceremonial robes flowing behind him. "Justice Robbins, on behalf of this courthouse, I offer my deepest apologies." The steel in his glare as it lands on Thompson could cut glass. Thompson fumbles with the handcuffs, finally releasing Eleanor's wrist. Red marks show where the metal dug into her skin. Eleanor accepts her cane from Reeves with a nod. She turns her attention back to Thompson. "Your actions today weren't just against me, but against the dignity every citizen deserves when interacting with law enforcement." Thompson stammers, desperation creeping into his voice. "I was just following protocol. You didn't identify yourself. How was I supposed to know?" Each excuse makes his situation worse. Reeves takes a step away from his partner, physically distancing himself. Security Chief Martinez speaks into his radio, his eyes never leaving the officers. "I need Lieutenant Davis at the main entrance immediately." From Eleanor's perspective, this moment is the fulcrum upon which meaningful change can pivot. She catalogs each reaction, the horror on the faces of courthouse staff, the vindication from the crowd, the panic emanating from Thompson. From Thompson's view, his career disintegrates before his eyes. Each second stretches into an eternity of regret. Martinez steps between Eleanor and the officers. "Badge and weapon, both of you. Now." Reeves immediately complies, hands shaking as he surrenders his equipment. Thompson stands frozen. "That wasn't a request, officer," Martinez says. As the truth of her identity spreads through the crowd, Eleanor prepares to reveal something even more significant than her title. Eleanor's gaze sweeps across the gathered crowd courthouse employees, citizens waiting for morning hearings, lawyers clutching briefcases. The moment demands acknowledgement of larger truths. "Today was my first day as a Supreme Court justice," she begins, her voice carrying easily now that everyone hangs on her words. "I chose to enter through the public entrance specifically to observe how ordinary citizens are treated." The revelation ripples through the crowd. Whispers spread. Phones continue recording. Eleanor continues, her tone measured but firm. "Before my appointment, I spent 50 years as a civil rights attorney specializing in police accountability. I've argued before the Supreme Court 8 times and won landmark cases establishing civilian oversight of law enforcement." Thompson's face drains of remaining color. He stares at his boots as the weight of his actions crashes down upon him. Reeves takes another step away from his former partner, as if proximity itself might contaminate him. "Most recently," Eleanor says, "I chaired the Douglas Commission on Police Accountability, whose recommendations were adopted by 17 states." The Chief Justice nods, adding, "Justice Robbins literally wrote the book on civilian oversight of law enforcement." Her text is required reading at the State Police Academy. Eleanor turns to face Thompson directly. "Officer, do you know why I didn't immediately identify myself?" Thompson's eyes remain fixed on the floor. "Because my title shouldn't matter," Eleanor says. "The respect and dignity you showed such contempt for is owed to every citizen entering this courthouse, not just to justices." Security Chief Martinez gestures, and 2 internal courthouse officers approach. "These officers will escort you to my office until your captain arrives," he tells Thompson and Reeves. Eleanor raises her hand. "One moment." She turns back to the crowd. "What you witnessed today wasn't an isolated incident. It represents systemic failures in how public servants interact with citizens they're sworn to protect." She reveals more. "I chair the state's new Judicial Reform Commission, tasked with overhauling courthouse security protocols and implementing accountability measures for law enforcement interactions with the public." Thompson looks physically ill now. Reeves has moved completely to the side, standing closer to the courthouse officers than to his partner. "What happened to me today happens to countless citizens who lack my credentials and platform," Eleanor continues. "The difference is, I can do something about it." She turns to the Chief Justice. "I believe we have our first case study for the commission." He nods gravely. "Indeed. And I assure you, Justice Robbins, this incident will receive our full attention." Eleanor addresses Thompson directly again. "Officer, your actions will have consequences, but they will also drive meaningful reform. In that way, despite your intentions, you'll have served justice today." From Eleanor's perspective, this confrontation represents the culmination of decades fighting for accountability. A perfect case study captured on multiple cameras from various angles. From Thompson's view, we see the ruins of his career flashing before his eyes, each dismissive word and unnecessary action replaying in his mind. Martinez instructs the courthouse officers, "Escort them to my office." The captain has been notified. As Thompson and Reeves are led away, Eleanor notices the young law clerk who tried to help earlier. She motions him forward. "Young man, what's your name?" "David Chen, Your Honor," he replies, clearly nervous to be addressed directly. "Mr. Chen, you showed courage today. I'd like to speak with you later about a potential clerkship in my chambers." The young man's eyes widen. Thank you, Your Honor. I would be honored. The crowd breaks into spontaneous applause. Eleanor raises her hand for silence. Don't applaud me, she says firmly. Instead, consider how you can advocate for those without power or platform when you witness injustice. The true measure of our system isn't how it treats the powerful, it's how it treats the vulnerable. The Chief Justice gestures toward the courthouse interior. Justice Robbins, your swearing-in ceremony awaits. Eleanor nods, finally allowing him to escort her inside. With each step supported by her cane, she moves with the dignity that no uniform, badge, or show of force could diminish. As Eleanor finally enters the courthouse for her first day on the bench, the wheels of justice begin turning at unprecedented speed. The incident explodes across social media within hours. By evening, news outlets run the headline, Supreme Court Justice shoved by officers on her first day. Videos from multiple angles show Thompson pushing Eleanor, kicking away her cane, and attempting to handcuff her. The police department issues an immediate public apology. Chief Williams appears on camera, visibly uncomfortable. The actions taken by our officers at the courthouse today fall far below our standards and expectations, he says. We extend our sincerest apologies to Justice Robbins and assure the public that a thorough investigation is already underway. Behind the scenes, the department scrambles. Emergency meetings convene. Officers receive urgent memos about proper courthouse protocol. The police chief announces a comprehensive review of training practices regarding treatment of elderly citizens and courthouse access procedures. 3 days later, Thompson and Reeves face separate departmental hearings. Thompson arrives with a union representative, his face set in defiance. I was following protocol, he insists to the review board. She didn't identify herself. How was I supposed to know who she was? The board chair responds coolly. The issue isn't that you failed to recognize Justice Robbins. The issue is how you treat any citizen approaching our courthouse. Reeves takes a different approach, appearing without union representation. I accept full responsibility for my actions, he tells the board. I failed to intervene when my partner escalated the situation, and I participated in discriminatory behavior. When asked to explain this discrimination, Reeves admits, we profiled her based on age and race. We assumed she was confused or didn't belong there because of how she looked. Meanwhile, Eleanor convenes the Judicial Reform Commission. The meeting room falls silent as she plays footage from the incident. This isn't about me, she tells the assembled judges, lawmakers, and civilian representatives. This is about systemic issues and how our public buildings' temples of justice treat the public they serve. She invites community members to share similar experiences. Dozens come forward, revealing a pattern of disrespect and bias at courthouse entrances, particularly toward elderly citizens, people of color, and those with disabilities. What happened to me made the news because of my title, Eleanor says. But these experiences happen daily without cameras or consequences. The mayor, sensing political winds, announces the formation of a civilian oversight committee specifically for courthouse security. Eleanor is asked to advise its implementation, a request she accepts with clear conditions about real authority and transparency. Thompson's police union initially stands by him. The union president makes a statement. Officer Thompson was performing his duties in a secure facility where identification is required. However, after viewing complete footage and learning of Eleanor's background in civil rights law, the union quietly withdraws support. An internal memo circulates. The union cannot defend actions clearly contrary to proper police conduct and constitutional rights. Thompson finds himself increasingly isolated. Former supporters distance themselves. Fellow officers avoid eye contact in hallways. The department's internal affairs investigation uncovers troubling patterns. 6 prior complaints against Thompson for excessive force and discourteous conduct had been filed in the past 3 years, primarily from minorities and elderly citizens. All had been dismissed or buried. Reeves cooperates fully with investigators, providing detailed accounts of previous incidents and problematic behaviors he witnessed. "I should have reported these concerns earlier," he acknowledges. "My silence made me complicit." 1 week after the incident, Eleanor meets privately with the police chief and mayor. The chief expects demands for Thompson's termination and departmental sanctions. Instead, Eleanor focuses on systemic change. "Officer Thompson is a symptom, not the disease," she tells them. "I'm more interested in preventing future abuses than punishing past ones." She proposes new training programs, emphasizing respect and dignity for all citizens regardless of appearance. She suggests civilian involvement in security protocols and accountability measures with real consequences. "Justice isn't about vengeance," she says. "It's about creating systems that protect human dignity." The mayor, relieved by her approach, pledges full cooperation. The police chief commits to implementing her recommendations. Both men fail to recognize the steel beneath her measured words. Eleanor doesn't seek vengeance, but she absolutely demands accountability. 2 weeks later, body camera footage from Thompson's previous interactions becomes public through a Freedom of Information request filed by a local newspaper. The videos show a disturbing pattern of disrespect toward minorities and elderly citizens. The police union officially withdraws all support. Their statement reads, "The pattern of behavior demonstrated by Officer Thompson does not represent the values or conduct we expect from our officers." Eleanor watches these developments from her chambers, focused on long-term reform rather than the fate of individual officers. When her clerk asks if she feels vindicated, she shakes her head. "Vindication would mean this never happens again," she says. "We're not there yet." From Eleanor's perspective, these institutional responses represent necessary but insufficient steps toward meaningful change. The swift reactions stem more from her title than from recognition of systemic problems. From Thompson's increasingly isolated position, the walls close in as supporters abandon him one by one. The department schedules Thompson's final disciplinary hearing. Eleanor receives a formal invitation to attend and provide testimony if she wishes. Her response surprises the department. She will attend not to demand punishment, but to ensure the focus remains on systemic reform. "Individual accountability matters," she writes. "But if the only outcome is one officer's termination while the system remains unchanged, justice will not have been served." The media coverage shifts from sensationalism to substantive discussion of courthouse access, police training, and accountability systems. Eleanor grants a single interview, using the platform to focus attention on broader issues. "What happened to me was unfortunately not extraordinary," she tells the interviewer. "What's extraordinary is that someone was finally in a position to demand change." As Thompson's hearing approaches, police departments across the state implement new training protocols. Courthouse security systems undergo review. Civilian oversight committees form in 3 major cities. From Eleanor's chambers, the ripple effects appear as the beginning of meaningful change. From Thompson's perspective, watching the news coverage alone in his apartment, they represent the collapse of his world. The day before the hearing, Eleanor reviews her prepared statement with her clerk. "Is it too lenient?" the young man asks hesitantly. Eleanor considers the question. "Justice isn't measured by the harshness of punishment," she finally responds. "It's measured by whether it creates a more just world going forward." As Thompson faces his disciplinary hearing, he has no idea that Justice Robbins herself will be present to deliver an unexpected message. Thompson enters the disciplinary hearing room with shoulders hunched, tie askew. The once confident officer now resembles a man walking to his execution. The panel of 5 senior officers sits behind a long table. Evidence folders stack neatly before each of them. He takes his seat alone. His union representative withdrew yesterday, citing irreconcilable differences in our approach to this case. The room falls silent as Eleanor enters, supported by her cane. She takes a seat at the side of the room, her presence electric despite her calm demeanor. Thompson doesn't raise his eyes to meet hers. The hearing begins with the presentation of evidence. Videos from multiple angles play on the large screen, showing the incident in merciless detail. Thompson's face reddens as his actions are dissected in clinical terms. "Officer Thompson," the chairwoman begins, "your service record shows 17 years on the force. It also shows 7 complaints of excessive force and discourteous conduct filed in the past 3 years. 5 involved elderly citizens. 6 involved minorities." Thompson shifts in his seat. "Those complaints were dismissed." "They were buried," the chairwoman corrects. "Not the same thing." When asked to explain his actions at the courthouse, Thompson's defense crumbles in real time. "She didn't identify herself. She was slow to produce ID. And that justified shoving a 72-year-old woman and kicking away her mobility aid?" the chairwoman asks. Thompson's explanations grow increasingly desperate. "I thought she was confused. She didn't look like she belonged there." "What exactly does someone who belongs at a courthouse look like, Officer Thompson?" His silence damns him more than any answer could. After 2 hours of testimony, the chairwoman turns to Eleanor. "Justice Robbins, would you like to make a statement?" The room stills as Eleanor rises and approaches the podium with measured steps. Thompson finally looks up, his face a mask of dread. "Officer Thompson," Eleanor begins, her voice carrying the same quiet authority it held during their confrontation. "I don't seek your punishment for my personal satisfaction. However, actions must have consequences." Thompson's shoulders slump further. "Your greater failure wasn't disrespecting me, but betraying your oath to protect and serve all citizens with equal dignity." Eleanor's words land with precision. "The uniform you wear represents justice, not intimidation." From Eleanor's perspective, this moment isn't about Thompson's individual fate, but about setting standards for the system. From Thompson's view, each word strips away his remaining defenses, leaving him nowhere to hide from his actions. "The measure of justice," Eleanor continues, "isn't found in retribution, but in restoration and prevention. I don't wish to see your career ended. I wish to see it transformed, along with the system that failed to correct your behavior until you encountered someone with my title." The panel listens intently as Eleanor concludes her statement. "Whatever decision you reach today, let it serve not just accountability for past actions, but a commitment to systemic change." The deliberation lasts 40 minutes. Thompson sits motionless throughout, staring at his hands. The chairwoman finally delivers their verdict. "Officer Thompson, this panel finds your actions constituted gross misconduct, abuse of authority, and violation of department policies regarding use of force and treatment of citizens." She continues, "You are hereby terminated from the police force, effective immediately." Your record will permanently reflect this misconduct. The panel further recommends against your future employment in any law enforcement capacity. Thompson receives the news without visible reaction. As he stands to leave, Eleanor intercepts him at the door. "Officer Thompson," she says quietly, so only he can hear, "your future actions will determine whether today represents the end of your career or the beginning of your education." He meets her eyes for the first time, confusion mixing with shame. "Redemption is always possible," Eleanor adds, "but it begins with acknowledging the harm you've caused." As Thompson faces his professional ruin, Eleanor prepares to unveil reforms that will transform courthouse security across the state. 6 months after the incident, Eleanor stands at a podium in the courthouse lobby. Behind her, a new sign reads, "Welcome to your courthouse. Justice serves the people." The Chief Justice and Police Chief flank her as cameras capture the moment. "Today we implement new security protocols in every courthouse across our state," Eleanor announces. "These changes emphasize that courthouses belong to the people, all people, regardless of appearance, ability, or background. The transformation extends far beyond signage. Security officers now wear body cameras. Clear complaint procedures appear on prominent displays. A civilian oversight committee reviews security footage weekly. The training program Eleanor developed requires all courthouse security personnel to complete sessions on implicit bias, proper treatment of elderly and disabled visitors, and de-escalation techniques. The curriculum uses footage from Eleanor's incident as a teaching tool, alongside testimonials from citizens who experienced similar treatment. "We're not erasing our mistakes," Eleanor tells a reporter after the ceremony. "We're learning from them." The police department partners with community elder organizations to develop new training modules. Eleanor chairs the inaugural meeting between police leadership and elder advocates, creating space for honest dialogue about past failures and future standards. "Respect isn't optional," she reminds officers during a training session. "It's fundamental to your oath." Reeves, who cooperated fully with investigators, completes intensive retraining and community service. Rather than losing his badge, he now helps train other officers on avoiding bias and treating all citizens with respect. "I failed that day," he tells a class of new recruits. "But failure becomes valuable when it leads to growth." From Eleanor's perspective, these changes represent the beginning of necessary transformation seeds planted in institutional soil that require constant tending. From the system's view, her approach offers a path to redemption rather than mere punishment. The reforms spread beyond courthouse security. Police departments across the state adopt Eleanor's training modules. Legislative committees invite her testimony on broader judicial reforms. Law schools request lectures on dignity-centered justice. At a police academy graduation, the Chief Justice introduces Eleanor to the cadets. "Justice Robbins transformed a moment of indignity into a movement for dignity. She showed us that true reform doesn't come from punishing mistakes but from learning from them." Eleanor's reforms gain national attention. 3 neighboring states request her guidance in implementing similar protocols. A National Police Chiefs Association invites her to deliver their keynote address. "This isn't about making officers walk on eggshells," she tells them. "It's about ensuring that the power you wield comes with corresponding responsibility." Throughout these changes, Eleanor maintains contact with Thompson's former partner. "Officer Reeves," she asks during one meeting, "do you think we're making real progress?" Reeves considers the question carefully. "The culture is shifting," he finally responds. "Officers who once laughed at bias jokes now call them out. That's where real change begins." As Eleanor prepares to speak at the unveiling of the new courthouse access protocols, an unexpected visitor waits nervously in the audience. 1 year after the incident, Eleanor addresses the graduating class of the police academy. Morning light streams through tall windows, illuminating rows of cadets in crisp uniforms. Her words carry to the back of the auditorium without need for amplification, a skill honed through decades of courtroom arguments. "True authority," she tells them, "comes not from your badge or weapon, but from the respect you show every citizen you encounter. Power imposed through force creates only resentment. Authority granted through respect creates justice." The cadets listen with rapt attention. In the back row sits a face few recognize: Thompson, now dressed in civilian clothes. After hitting rock bottom, losing not just his job but his identity, he reached out to Eleanor in a letter that began, "I don't deserve your time, but I need to understand where I failed." Rather than ignoring him, Eleanor connected Thompson with the senior center where she volunteered before her judicial appointment. There, daily interactions with elderly citizens transformed his perspective. Working alongside those he once dismissed taught him to see dignity in every face. Eleanor concludes her speech with a gesture that surprises everyone. "There's someone here today whose journey illustrates the path from power to true authority. Mr. Thompson, would you join me?" Murmurs ripple through the audience as Thompson makes his way to the podium. Many recognize him from the viral videos that defined his downfall. His voice, when he speaks, carries none of his former arrogance. "A year ago, I mistook a badge for authority and force for respect," he tells the cadets. Justice Robbins showed me that true power comes from dignity, not dominance. He describes his journey, the shame, the loss, the slow rebuilding. I now coordinate community outreach at the Riverside Senior Center, where I learn daily from those I once failed to see as full citizens deserving of respect. After the ceremony, Eleanor and Thompson speak privately in a quiet corner of the reception hall. He thanks her for not allowing his mistake to be the end of his story, but the beginning of his education, echoing her words from the disciplinary hearing. "Your redemption wasn't my work," Eleanor tells him. "It was yours. You chose to learn rather than blame." Through the window, Eleanor watches security officers at the courthouse entrance across the street. They welcome an elderly visitor, offering assistance rather than suspicion. One officer holds the door while another helps the man navigate the security scanner with his walker. "That's how it should be," she says, more to herself than Thompson. From Eleanor's perspective, this transformation, both institutional and individual, validates her approach to justice as restoration rather than retribution. From Thompson's view, we see genuine gratitude for painful but necessary lessons that gave him a second chance at serving his community, not through force, but through respect. The Chief Justice joins them, champagne flute in hand. "Your reforms have been implemented in every courthouse in the state," he tells Eleanor. "Complaints are down 80%. Civilian approval ratings have doubled." Eleanor nods, satisfied but not complacent. There's still work to do. Before leaving, she addresses the graduating class one final time. The measure of justice isn't how we treat the powerful, but how we respect the dignity of every citizen who walks through our doors. As she exits, a cadet asks what keeps her fighting after 50 years. Eleanor smiles, tapping her cane gently on the marble floor. Because dignity isn't earned through titles, it's the birthright of every human being. Hit that like button if you believe everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance or age. Subscribe to Beat Stories for more compelling narratives that challenge how we see the world and inspire us to stand up for what's right. Each week, we bring you true stories of courage, redemption, and justice that mainstream media often overlooks. Comment below with your thoughts or similar experiences. Have you witnessed discrimination based on age or appearance? How did you respond?
This story shouldn't be the exception. It should be the last time it ever happens. At Beat Stories, we turn one moment of injustice into a call for change. Subscribe to help make that call louder and longer lasting.